Here we are back again. We're going to do another one of these short segment kind of things, and this is the way we're going to go through these whole OTT. Our goal is to hopefully have this completed, this second reading completed by the end of the year. So we left off on page 48, the record of the orally transmitted teachings. We're still in Simile and Parable, the third chapter. We're on point 4. It's in the very middle of page 48. Okay, point 4, regarding the share of the Buddha's law in the passage, born from the Buddha's mouth, born through conversion to the law, gaining my share, bun, of the Buddha's law. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, so this is going straight into Nichiren. Nichiren says, this share of the Buddha's law refers to a share or portion of the middle way that Shariputra gained enlightenment into the first stage of security. The various distinctions or stages represented by the first stage of in the theoretical teaching and the second stage and above in the essential teaching all arise out of the word share, bun. In effect, this one word share represents the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. All life shares that single moment of life, okay? Therefore, those who are in hell attain the effect of Buddhahood in their shares or identities as dwellers in hell. And thus, in the same way, all the beings in the 3,000 worlds, in the 3,000 realms, each in the entity of its own particular share, can attain Buddhahood. Let me say that last sentence again. And thus, in the same way, all the beings in the 3,000 realms, each in the entity of its own particular share, attain Buddhahood. Everything, okay? So the Buddhahood is not separate from anything. This is the truth, is what is meant when it is said that one may attain Buddhahood in our present identities. Now, when Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they are in that share or identity attaining Buddhahood. That share is our identities as bodhisattvas of the earth, right? Chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, embracing the teaching, sharing it with others. Bun, or share, may also mean to separate or to distinguish, and refers to the making of a clear distinction between the provisional teachings, which can never lead to enlightenment, and that's everything up into the point of him talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, okay, is considered provisional as it relates to the latter day of the law and the perfect teaching of the lotus in nirvana, okay, and anything less than that can never attain, you can never attain actual enlightenment from. And the Lotus Sutra, which embodies one to attain enlightenment. So it's only through the Lotus Sutra that you attain enlightenment. Again, the bun, or share, that is embodied in the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching, the share that is the original share or endowment of each and every being. Okay, so what would be the original share or endowment of each and every being? It's their original state of Buddhahood that they've had since beginningless time. It's one their embodiment of the three bodies eternally. Okay, summing up then, we may say that this share of enlightenment, the Shariputra attained, the first stage of security in the theoretical teaching, is concerned only with an understanding of the doctrinal study of the sutra. But when one truly attains the enlightenment of the first stage of security, the stage of non-regression and the true cause of Shakyamuni's enlightenment, one has reached the highest level of the entire sutra. So it might have seemed it like he was qualifying that what I said yesterday, I believe, in one of those videos, was the fact that I have this feeling I've never felt before, and I said that was him hitting stage 6, okay, as a bodhisattva, realizing his original identity. Okay, this is qualifying that that is the case. It's not like the first stage in the theoretical teaching. Let me read that last paragraph again. It's very important. The last paragraph of point 4. Again, the bun, or share, is that embodied in the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching. The share that is the original share of endowment of each and every living, and each and every being. It's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Summing up then, we may say that this share of enlightenment or awareness of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the original state, that Shariputra attained, the first stage of security in the theoretical teaching, is concerned only with an understanding of the doctrinal study of the sutra. That it's just qualified that he's hit the first stage of the theoretical teaching, okay? But when one truly attains enlightenment of the first stage of security, the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo perspective and understanding, the stage of non-regression, which means you can never go back to being a common mortal. You've already heard the name and the words of the truth. You're on the path toward the sixth stage, okay? And this is the true cause, as it is with all of us, of Shakyamuni's enlightenment, okay? One has reached the highest level of the entire sutra because one has activated one's Buddha nature and brought it forth in the existence that you're in, and therefore it will be in every existence in the future. Okay, so that's very key. You're never going to not have access to Buddhahood, nor is there any real probability that you won't attain Buddhahood in each subsequent lifetime after this one. And this is the turning point where you go from being a common mortal in your present form to being a Buddha in your present form. All right. Point 5, regarding once you activate Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the way that you get that sense, okay? Like it's talking about theoretically a Shariputra, but we all have that identical experience at that moment in which the light goes on and we realize, even though we've been reading this as the first stage of the theoretical teaching, we come into the understanding of, I get it. I am the Buddha exactly as I am, with all my flaws and mistakes and problems, all of my challenges. I'm still the Buddha exactly as I am. And therefore, I have all of the Buddha's supernatural powers accessible to me, and all of the words of wisdom that come from all the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences all exist within my mind. All of that exists within my mind. That is the thing that you come to realize. And he says, when one truly attains enlightenment, okay, and the true cause of Shakyamuni's enlightenment, and the stage of non-regression, and the true cause of Shakyamuni's enlightenment, one has reached the highest level of the entire sutra. The rest of it's an understanding, the embellishment of the truth. Point 5, page 49. Regarding the words turning round and round of themselves in the passage, the heavenly robes they had scattered remained suspended in the air and turned round and round of themselves. Volume 5 of On the Words and Phrases says, this is Myolo, it is just as the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom states. When the sutra says that the robes turned round and round of themselves, it indicates that when the multitude heard Shariputra receive a prediction that he would attain Buddhahood, their Dharma natures turned or appeared naturally, because in the process of them hearing that he's going to attain Buddhahood in the future, they all now have for the first time an instilled desire to also attain Buddhahood themselves, which has not been something available to them really, as stated in the sutras prior to this point. All right, so their Dharma natures turned and appeared naturally. Their enlightened states, their Dharma natures, or appeared naturally and of themselves, thus turning or transforming all the causes and effects that pertain to them, their own beings and their environments, their selves and others about them. Okay, I'll go ahead and read. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, the proof that insentient beings such as plants and trees can attain Buddhahood derives from this passage on how the robes turned round and round of themselves. For it explains in full how, because of the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, both the self and the environment are one in attaining Buddhahood. When you attain Buddhahood, your environment automatically takes on that enlightened aspect because it's a reflection of you. Everything in your environment is actually, in any given single moment, a reflection of you. You think it's because of everything that surrounds you, but everything that surrounds you is being affected in that single moment by the karmic influences it has. And it indicates that Nichiren and his followers in chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are the very ones who prove that it is possible for plants and trees to attain Buddhahood. Okay, because we validate the true teaching, okay, of all living beings. The turning round and round is done by the 5 characters of the Daimoku, which are inherent in all things. And the of themselves indicates that it is something done by us practitioners. It's our own volition, you know, form, perception, conception, volition. We're the ones that take the action that brings forth this reality into our lives. Even though it's innate within our lives, we have to bring it forth. He then says, you should give careful thought to these words in the 5th volume of On Words and Phrases. So let's go back to this On Words and Phrases, volume 5, and say it again. Point 5, regarding the words turned round and round of themselves in the passage, the heavenly robes they had scattered remained suspended in the air and turned round and round of themselves. Volume 5 on Words and Phrases says, it is just as the treatise on the great Myolo says, it is just as the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, which would be Nagarjuna, states, when the sutra says that the robes turned round and round of themselves, it indicates that when the multitude heard Shariputra receive a prediction that he would attain Buddhahood, their Dharma natures turned or appeared naturally and of themselves, thus turning or transforming all the causes and effects that pertain to them and their own beings and their environments, their selves and others about them. In other words, the single Buddhahood emerging from Shariputra emanates and affects his entire environment and everything in it, and brings forth the Buddha nature in all those elements outside of himself. But it's his cause that's creating the cause for them, of themselves, to do these things. He's not doing it for them. They're doing it all of themselves. Okay? That's called karma. That's the way everything works. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says at the bottom of page 49, the proof that insentient beings, such as plants and trees, can attain Buddhahood derives from this passage on how the robes turned round and round of themselves, for it explains in full how, because of the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, that everything contains the Buddha nature, both the self and the environment are one in attaining Buddhahood, okay? One in attaining Buddhahood, so that when the entity becomes aware of the fact that they are the Buddha, their environment reflects that awareness. And it indicates that Nichiren and his followers in chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are the very ones who prove that it is possible for plants and trees to attain Buddhahood, because they actually attain Buddhahood in their present form. All right? We're the only ones that actually attain Buddhahood in our present form. Shariputra is given a prediction of enlightenment at a future time. Everybody else that is getting told that they have a Buddha nature that will come forth and they'll be this and that, so forth Buddha. That's the difference between the Buddhism of sowing and the Buddhism of harvest. Buddhism of harvest, you've got to harvest the seeds of Buddhahood in another lifetime. It takes a long time to do that. With the Daishonin's teaching of Buddhahood of immediate and certain enlightenment, it's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So you're going to the original state from the get-go, boom, everything's activated, and that activates everything else around it as far as the Buddha nature is concerned. And then the Daishonin ends by saying, you should give very careful thought to these words in the 5th volume of On Words and Phrases. So you should have like a star, like I have on this page, and stars and stars. You can see all the stars. This is all to tell me this is something not to blow off or think that I just know, to constantly keep coming back and reinforcing in my mind what it is that I'm saying and thinking that I know, and utilizing in my daily life. Continuing on page 50.6, regarding the words all acting at the same time in the passage, heavenly beings made music, 100, 1,000, 10,000 varieties, all acting at the same time in the midst of the air, raining down quantities of heavenly flowers and speaking these words. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word time refers to the time of the latter day of the law. All acting refers to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is revealed and utilized for the first time in the latter day of the law. It does not get revealed or utilized prior to that. All refers to the words, so the original state is only identified and becomes known by virtue of the original teacher's manifestation in the fifth 500-year period. That's why we call everything prior to that trace or provisional teachings, and everything after that true. Okay, that's the distinction. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says the word time refers to the time of the latter day of the law, the time of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and the original teacher Nichiren. All acting refers to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the law that is revealed at that time. All refers to the words in the end to dwell in the single vehicle. The single vehicle and dwelling in the single vehicle is to perceive the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That is your life. As the light of the sun and the moon can banish all obscurity and gloom, so this person, as he passes through the world, can wipe out the darkness of living beings. Any Buddha is able to do that. Okay, so he's speaking specifically in the Lotus Sutra of Shakyamuni. Nichiren is now qualifying, I also have that capacity. You have to read it into my actions and the influence of what my actions are, but I'm also fulfilling these same phrases. And in fact, if you do what I'm suggesting, you'll bring forth your Buddha nature and you'll be doing exactly the same thing as well. So let me continue. In fact, let me start over point 6 again. Now you get an idea of where this is going. It's a lot of stars. Point 6, regarding the words all acting at the same time in the passage, heavenly beings made music, 100, 1,000, 10,000 varieties, all acting at the same time in the midst of the air, raining down quantities of heavenly flowers and speaking these words. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, Nichiren says, the word time refers to the time of the latter day of the law. Check. All acting refers to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Check. All refers to the words in the end dwell in the single vehicle. All are affected, all of them attain Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Check. Okay. In the passage, as the light of the sun and the moon can banish all obscurity and gloom, so this person, as he passes through the world, can wipe out the darkness of living beings, causing immeasurable numbers of bodhisattvas in the end to dwell in the single vehicle. Each one of us do that. Chapter 21, Supernatural Powers. Now, Nichiren and his followers center on the 5 characters of the Daimoku and are not concerned with any other practices. Again, the record, Nichiren says, the words and sayings of the 10 worlds are all activities springing from a single chanting of the Daimoku, springing from a single chanting of Daimoku. And that single chanting of Daimoku was his first Daimoku that came out as he was contemplating how he was going to present the lecture on what he had learned while he had been on his travels to the community of priests and officials around Seichoji in Awa province, okay, Seichoji temple. So that's from a single, that's when he says, the words and sayings of the 10 worlds are all activities springing from a single chanting of the Daimoku. It's his single chanting of the Daimoku the night before he gave the lecture that almost got him killed. How then could they fail to have an effect? They're tied immediately to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and to me, the original teacher of this teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Point 7, on using similes and parables to obtain understanding, as in the passage, Moreover, Shariputra, I too will now make use of similes and parables to further clarify this doctrine. For through similes and parables, those who are wise can obtain understanding. Okay, and we're reading from the simile and parable chapter, right? Okay. Great concentration and insight, volume 5 says. So Tiantai says, wisdom means to be able to use similes as a means by which to understand the teachings. Excuse me. Okay, so great concentration and insight, again in volume 5, makes this statement of wisdom means being able to use similes as a means by which to understand the teachings. Now, the Daishonin goes into his explication. The record, page 61, or pardon me, 51. Is that a 5? That is a 5. Okay, 51. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says this passage refers to the way in which the image of a mirror expresses the perfect unification of the three truths. What are the three truths? Non-substantiality, temporary existence, no. It's a little bit of both. It's the middle way. That's the three truths, okay? Generally speaking, the simile of a mirror refers to the way in which one sees one's image and reflection in a mirror. The mirror is the mirror of the single mind. Though there are various sayings associated with mirrors, in the end they are all founded on the particular power and virtue of mirrors, their ability to reflect all the 10,000 images or phenomena. Okay, and it's got an asterisk when it says 10,000. Okay, 10,000 as in all of the 10,000 images mean all or innumerable. Other such expressions such as 10,000 things and all the 10,000 phenomena. So anytime you hear the word 10,000 thrown out there, it's referring to everything like that. It's a number greater than 10,000 potentially. If it needs to be, it's inclusive of all of whatever it's speaking of. So here it says images. So this is like, I could read this also. There are various sayings associated with mirrors. In the end, they are founded on the particular power and virtue of mirrors, their ability to reflect all things, all images or phenomena, okay? I could say it the same, those same words say exactly the same thing. The 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo similarly reflect all things, the 10,000 phenomena. All things, not overlooking a single one of them. So I repeat that again. The 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo similarly reflect the 10,000 phenomena, not overlooking a single one of them. Should be understood to be saying the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo similarly reflect all things, not overlooking a single one of them. The record also speaks of the 5 mirrors. In the mirror of Myo are reflected the wonders of the Dharma realm. In the mirror of, in mystic, is reflected the wonders of the Dharma realm. In the mirror Ho is reflected the entity or essence of the Dharma realm. Ho is law, right? The law that's never changing. In the mirror of Rin are reflected the effects of the Dharma realm. And in the mirror of Ge, Rin Ge, are reflected the causes of the Dharma realm. Okay, so cause and effect of the Rin Ge, right, are together. Rin are the reflected effects, and Ge are the reflected causes of the Dharma realm. Dharma realm is everything in the universe, right? Everything. So the causes and effects of everything in the universe are reflected in the universe. That's what that just said, okay? And in the mirror of Kyo are reflected the words and sounds of the 10,000 phenomena, are the sounds of everything, okay? So the causes and effects and the sounds are all present in Myoho Renge-kyo. That's what that is, what I just said, right? Myo, Ho, Rin, Ge, Kyo is what I just covered. I'll say the paragraph again. The record also speaks of the 5 mirrors in the middle of page 51. Okay, the record also speaks of 5 mirrors. In the mirror of Myo are reflected the wonders of the Dharma realm, the things that are mystic that you can't understand. In the mirror of Ho is reflected the entity or essence of the Dharma realm, the things that are physically in front of you that are the part of your phenomenal experience. Okay, in the mirror of Ren are reflected the effects of the Dharma realm. In the mirror of Ge are reflected the causes of the Dharma realm. So Ren-Ge, or lotus flower, reflects both causes and effects. That's the whole point. They're simultaneous. That was the mystic law that had preceded Ren-Ge, right? And Kyo is the teaching that reveals all of this truth. Are reflected the words and sounds of all phenomena. Again, we may say, on page 51, at the last paragraph, again, we may say that in the mirror of Myo are reflected the flower garland teachings, in the mirror of Ho, the Agama teachings, in the mirror of Ren, the correct and equal teachings, in the mirror of Ge, the wisdom teachings, and in the mirror of Kyo, the lotus teachings. One should understand how they relate to One should understand how they relate to each other in the order they were preached, and in the reverse order. So here it says the words in the order they were preached mean to determine the superiority and inferiority of these 5 teachings, and in the reverse order means to interpret the first 4 teachings from the viewpoint of the lotus teachings. All right, and then it says the 5 bodily sections, or the 5 elements that make up the bodies of living beings. Okay, so the 5 bodily sections are the head and the 4 limbs, and indicate the entire human body. The 5 bodily sections are the bodies of living beings such as us, are reflections of Myo, Ho, Rin, Ge, Kyo, and therefore we should learn to use the Treasure Tower chapter as our mirror. It will enable us to determine clearly whether our faith is genuine or whether we are committing slander. A mirror that allows us to see our own images and reflections. Such is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay? Point 8. On the words only one gate in the passage, Sherry Putra, suppose that in a certain town, in a certain country, was a very rich man. His own house was big and rambling, but it had only one gate. This is on page 52. Words and Phrases, volume 5. So Tentai, again, volume 5 says the words had only one gate are a simile that derives from the earlier passage. I employ various doctrines, literally doctrines are gates, to disseminate the Buddha way. There are 2 kinds of gates, the gate to a house and the gate to a vehicle. The house is the realm of birth and death, and the gate is the all-important path by which one gains egress from the house. Okay? So how you get out of your bodily reality of the temporary gathering of 5 components and go back into quietude and non-substantiality. Here, it represents the ultimate doctrine of the expedient teachings. The vehicle is the doctrine of the great vehicle, and the gate to it is the ultimate expression of the perfect teaching. The ultimate expression of the perfect teaching is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, the one gate is the mind that has faith in the Lotus Sutra. The vehicle is the Lotus Sutra, and the ox that draws the vehicle is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Do you understand that analogy? I'll say it again. Nichiren says, the one gate is the mind that has faith in the Lotus Sutra, your reward body, okay? The vehicle is the Lotus Sutra. That's what allows you to understand your reward body. And the ox that draws the vehicle is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, because you're chanting Daimoku as a way to bring forth this clarity. The house is the realm of earthly desires, passing through the rounds of births and deaths. We go through many, many, many countless lifetimes. One makes one's way on the land of the Dharma nature or enlightenment that is inherent within oneself. And with that, we'll stop and we'll pick it up on point 9 on page 52 the next time. Thank you very much.